Today is Monday, August 5th, 2019, and it is day 15 of our John Muir Trail through hike adventure. It's been about 5 days since we reported out, and a lot of adventure has happened since then, so I have to refer to my notes to remember everything. So on day 11, we hiked from Muir Pass to McClure Meadow. That was 12.63 miles. We did 1,700 feet of ascent and almost 2,400 feet of descent. We were the first to the top of Muir Pass, and we had heard that it was really sketchy, a lot of route finding, a lot of snow fields, like miles of snow. And actually somebody had been medevaced off of Muir Pass the day before. So knowing all of that and heading into it, it was, pretty anxiety inducing, but it ended up being awesome. And we conquered it, and it was amazing to be the only ones up there first thing in the morning. We got into camp at McClure Meadow, and it was still pretty mosquito-y, so we just basically ate and then went to bed. But we woke up the next morning and got the blood pumping because I had just come back from getting water, and Matt was like, "Look, Joanna, look at those eyes over there." So he shines his headlamp, and there are two sets of these green glowing eyes that are looking back at us from, maybe 500 yards away. And so I'm on high alert because they look like mountain lions. Like the way that their eyes were forward really looked like a cat. So we sit there and we're watching them, and we're getting, breaking down camp. And I turn over, and my headlamp shines on another set of eyes. And it turns out that it was a doe who was in our camp, like literally within touching distance in our camp. And so Matt went up to investigate what those other sets of eyes were, and it turns out they were her twin fawns. So it was something scary that ended up not being scary and was really adorable. And since then, we've seen at least 3 more sets of does with twin babies, which is really cute. So it was a banner year for twin deer. On the hike there, from McClure to Sally Keys, we passed Muir Trail Ranch, which is like technically the halfway point, so that was something to celebrate. And we actually saw a small fire that a tree had been struck by lightning a couple days earlier, and either CAL FIRE or National Fire Service had dropped off some Proby firefighters to sit there and watch it. So it was crazy because it was really smoky in the air, and we were thinking back to like when the big forest fires had happened and how that canceled a lot of people's trips. So we were grateful that it wasn't something more serious than that. We got to Sally Keys, and Matt caught the third of the trifecta of Sierra Nevada trout, which was the golden. And that day we did 16 miles, 2,470 feet of ascent, 1,963 feet of descent. The next day we really pushed, and we realized that if we hiked about 18 miles, we'd be able to get to Vermilion Valley Resort a day early. So we left Sally Keys, we went over Selden Pass, and then down Bear Ridge, and we did 4,324 feet of descent, and my knees felt every single step of that. It was an incredible amount of switchbacks, and Bear Ridge was graded nicely, but it was so monotonous, and it was narrow and steep and sheer on one side. So I was super happy to get down that, and then we took the spur trail to get over to where the ferry is, and after like 17 miles, we were just ready to be there, ready to be on the ferry, ready to be at BVR and relaxing. So we get to where the ferry launches, and the ferry doesn't come until 4:45 in the afternoon, and we arrived about 1:30. So we were sitting there, and we had passed a family or a group of people on the trail toward the ferry landing, and kind of struck up a conversation with them. And while we were sitting there, they came back. And it turns out they had a private boat that was moored out in the water. And so, Matt and I were joking around with this guy. Like, Matt was like, "Hey, I was going to swim out and steal your boat." And the guy was like, "You should have. The keys were in it." And I was like, "I will give you $20 if you'll drive us to the other side of the lake." And he was like, "Of course, just get in." So we ended up hitchhiking a ride on this private boat with this group of people that were pretty intoxicated. So we get out on the boat, and we're about halfway across the lake, so in the middle of this giant Lake Edison, and they run out of gas in the motor. So I'm white-knuckling Matt's arm, and I'm starting to freak out a little bit, and he's just laughing because it's all part of the adventure, and thank God this guy had a Honda outboard as like a little kicker. So it was running on fumes because he hadn't filled up that gas tank either, and we finally puttered our way across to the lake. They beached the boat, and we jumped out and said, thanks for the ride, we'll get ourselves the rest of the way. And then we road walked maybe like a half mile to get to the resort, and it was just amazing to walk onto that property. So we walk up to the store, and we're getting ready to buy our shower tokens and our laundry tokens and start eating. And we walk up, and there is a sign that says, sorry, no showers, water tank issues. And I literally thought, I started to like almost boo-hoo cry. Like, we got our free Dr. Pepper, and we're sitting out there, and Matt's trying to keep me in a positive mental space, but I was about to lose it because we had pushed so hard. And the one thing I wanted more than anything was to take a shower. So there was a table of other thru hikers that were sitting kind of kitty corner from us, and they were having their own conversation about the showers. And this girl mentioned that she had 2 extra tokens, and she was like, should I return them? And Matt was like, I will buy them off of you. So she ended up giving us her tokens, and we bought her a beer later on as a thank you, and it just turned my day around. I got to shower, we ate, we got there on Saturday, which is when they do this big, like Argentinian gaucho style barbecue with tri-tip and chicken and ribs and New York steak, and it was amazing. We filled up on meat. We met so many cool, interesting people that were through hiking in both directions from all over the world, all over the U.S. We talked a lot of gear, we hung out, we exchanged stories. Everybody was super interested to hear from us because we were one of the few that was actually heading northbound. So they wanted to know how all the passes were that they were about to hit. So we just really enjoyed ourselves, and we got up the next day, and we were trying to decide if we were going to take a full zero and stay for one whole extra day or leave on the late ferry. We ended up deciding to leave on the late ferry, and I'm super glad that we did, because as we were getting dropped off back at the ferry landing, there were almost 40 hikers that were waiting to come back on the ferry to go to BDR, so it would have been chaos. And even as it was, when we were there, it was so busy, and they were so short-handed, so it was the right decision, and it worked out with the timing so that we could just hike about 4 miles in and camp pretty much at the base of Silver Pass so that we could wake up early this morning and do Silver Pass the way that we like to do it in the cool of the day. So it was totally the right decision to come back and not take a full zero. Today we did Silver Pass, we did Tully Hole, which was a huge hike out of that. Big ascent. We did like 3,907 feet of ascent and 2,850 feet of descent. And the National Geographic map did not indicate that at all. So maybe their route has changed since that map's been published or what. But it was a big day. We did over 15 miles, and now we're camped in this absolutely gorgeous spot. And we are queued up tomorrow to make it to Red's Meadow. So it'll be about a 13-mile day, but we'll be able to eat in a restaurant. We're thinking about maybe taking the bus into Mammoth because we've never been there before, and maybe dining in a restaurant there and just checking it out. So another really hard, long day, but totally worth it. And the bugs have been absolutely non-existent here. We definitely did buy bug repellent when we were at BDR, and it was a game changer. I mean, it's made our experience so much better. So overall, everything's great. We're all caught up, and we've passed our 2/3 point. So we have 1/3 of our trip left, and then we're almost to Yosemite. So pretty exciting. Now we're gonna have dinner. Backpacker's Pantry, mac and cheese.